The contents of this radio show are for informational purposes only and are not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Neither Dr. Northrup nor the Hay House Publishing Group is responsible for any adverse effects resulting from your use of or reliance on any information contained in this radio show.
It's your turn now. Learn how to flourish with Dr. Christian Northrup.
Good morning, one and all. It is a new moon in Aquarius today. It's also Candlemas, and this is the feast day of Saint Bridget. It is considered the halfway point in winter, which you would never know if you were looking out my window. It is snowing so hard, I can barely see the river out here. And yet, it is the turning point. So spring begins. In many cultures, this is the first day that you could plant seeds inside or break new ground for those of you who are in the warmer climates. And you can actually feel a quickening in the light. I had a robin come and land on a bush outside my window yesterday. I don't know where that robin came from. Probably was a manifestation for me of this new cycle. And to celebrate this new moon in Aquarius, which I learned from an astrologer, Simone, at astroastrology.com, that this Aquarius new moon lights up the helpful people place in your home and in your life, which is to the right of your front door, for those of you who understand the Bagua map. But today I want to begin our show with the singing of Will Blunderfield. First, we're going to talk to Will. He is a yoga teacher and musician, singer from Vancouver. And when I was in Vancouver last year, in November, I did a show with Drisdy Point, which is a local radio show out of Vancouver. And they played one of Will's songs, actually Leonard Cohen's Alleluia. And I was transported. I was so aware of the power of the human voice to take us higher, to quicken our cells. And then my daughter took a yoga class with Will, and she said, in the middle of pigeon pose or whatever pose, Will might break into Defying Gravity from a Broadway show. So to me, that's heaven, absolute heaven, bringing this joyous wonder into the practice of yoga, celebration into the disciplines of being present and being aware. So, Will, we have you coming to us from Vancouver, correct?
Hi, how's it going?
It's going great. So
before
we gift our listeners with your music, I want you to tell me a little bit about your background, and all of you can go. Will, I know you have a Facebook page.
I do. If you type
tell us
Blunderfield on Facebook, or if you go to willblunderfield.com, I've got my pictures and music and different tour dates and whatnot.
Good. So Will Blunderfield, that's Blunderfield. And Will is a fine-looking guy.
Oh.
And you're going to want to see the pictures.
Thank you.
He also opened my gig there in Vancouver. So I just felt that it was a wonderful meeting of souls. So tell us how long have you been singing, and also when did you combine the discipline of yoga and also the Sanskrit chanting? That's one of the things that enchanted me about Will's CD, Alleluia. It was this CD for me this past fall when Venus was in Scorpio and all of the compost of my life was coming up to hit me between the eyes. And you know what I'm talking about because it happened to you guys too. Will's CD was medicine for me. I would play the songs over and over and over, and sometimes on a plane, same thing. They go in as medicine. So tell us how you came to be a medicine man, Will.
Oh, thank you. Well, I started off actually going to musical theater school in New York. And,
oh, my gosh.
Yeah, it was crazy because I was just this little Vancouver boy. And, Vancouver's a small town compared to New York. And so when I got there, it was like, oh, my gosh, this is crazy. This is kind of overwhelming. Being in a new city and being away from home for the first time at age 17. And So there was all this auditioning, and the cattle calls of New York. The New York audition scene is pretty intense. And I discovered yoga actually through one of the teachers at the school. I went to the American Musical and Dramatic Academy in Manhattan. And he basically got us to teach yoga to our students before we went on stage as a way to sort of calm us down and ground us. And
nice.
Yeah, it was really a fun experience. And I think at first a lot of us were like, oh my gosh, I've never done this before. This is kind of different. We actually did a form of yoga called tremoring, which is where you extend the pose to the point where your body starts to shake. And then you just...
I know that place.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. I think we've all been there. But it was sort of like deliberate tremoring, and you take deep breaths and just sort of sigh it out, like, ah. And it was very relaxing and very grounding for me. And so I got the idea to combine yoga with music when I moved back to Vancouver a few years later, because Vancouver is kind of a hotbed for yoga. And I met this woman named Maggie Ray, and she was actually one of my teachers in my teacher training. And she combined fluid movements with her own chanting, her own made-up chanting. And it just really resonated with me. And I was like, oh, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Like, this sounds cool. This will be fun. Because those are my two passions, really, yoga and music. And when I'm doing them, I feel like I'm connected to source energy. And
you are.
Yeah.
I can tell you are, because my body is a tuning fork for that. I just know. So when I heard your voice, and I was here on a cold November night coming over the airwaves from Vancouver,